Everyone, what is going on? What is going on? And good evening to you. Welcome to That Man Show. My name is Curtis Brooks. I am your host, executive coach, and men's life coach, specializing in transformational leadership for men. Guys, we got a 1 second here. Everyone, what is going on? What is Yikes, going on? Give me 1 second here. That Man Show. My name is Curtis Brooks. I am your host, executive coach, and men's life coach, specializing. I'm coming together on the other end. Okay, give me 1 second there. I apologize. Coming out on the other side of my show here. I meant to. Okay, there we go. All right, guys. Hopefully you can hear me. All right, again, I do apologize for that. Hopefully you can hear me. I had my speakers here. I'm not using headphones, and so my speakers are coming through here. So that being said, guys, we got a wonderful show for you. We got a great show for you because this show here is yet another show that's dear to my heart. That is Masculinity Redefined, soft skills or traditional hard skills. Now, before we get started here, I want to just let you know that we have opportunity for you to connect with me in Zoom. So if you are so inclined to be part of this conversation, you can absolutely connect with us here in Zoom. That's going to allow you to share the screen with me, not in the same Zoom traditional sense, but in a sense where you see my background here. If you're so inclined to come on screen with me, you'll be sharing that same background with me. This just kind of the same setup here with the background, just side by side talking, and also kind of give you an opportunity to highlight yourself as you are sharing your different points and views and opinions in regards to the topic that we are discussing. Again, that's masculinity redefined, soft skills or traditional hard skills. Now, the reason why this conversation is so near and dear to my heart, because as a men's life coach, I think we are in a dilemma. We are in a dilemma. And I think for me, to be honest, I've learned how to be more of I'm more of a traditional man, if you will, coming from a traditional perspective, but I've had to learn the soft skills of it. So I want to give you the definition of soft skills. And some of you may know that already, but I want to share that with you. And so, according to human resources, and that's kind of what just kind of play on words, if you will. So, according to human resources, soft skills are character traits character traits and interpersonal skills that support the pursuit of personal and organizational goals. So, obviously, not necessarily it doesn't always have to be organizational, but it can be within your relationship, within your marriage. It could be anything that's going to facilitate good relationship, a good relationship or good relationships. So that is soft skills. And I just want to give you a little bit of background here. Hard skills now. Okay, 1 second here. Hard skills are essentially the formal training that we receive to do certain jobs, whether you be a person being an engineer or an accountant or a website developer, but hard skills are essentially the formal training that we acquire to do certain jobs. And obviously, some of us, we hopefully we understand that just because you are degreed on something or perhaps a doctorate or doesn't matter, you have a formal training, but it does not necessarily equate to soft skills. They are very much needed in the workplace, also in relationships, absolutely. But without them, we don't make it in life. We can't make it in life with just hard skills. We can't make it in life with just soft skills. So that being said, give me 1 second here, guys. I got a couple of things going on here. Trying to make sure I bring the comments in here. If you got comments, so I want to make sure I'm grabbing those comments. So give me 1 second here. Okay, that's not going to work. Okay, that is not going to work. So, all right, so I'm going to have to just go back and forth. I'm trying to make sure I get the comments on the screen here. And so I'm able to engage with you guys. As last time there was actually quite a bit of comments, and I didn't get a chance to engage like I wanted to. So I want to apologize for that. So that being said, guys, again, I just read you the definition. Or just share with you the definition of hard skills. Hard skills is going to be that formal training that we receive for these specific jobs that we're doing, as opposed to the soft skills. The soft skills are going to be more of our interpersonal skills, character traits that help us to facilitate good relationship with people outside of that formal training. So now let's get to the crux of what we're going to be discussing tonight. All right. I'm going to propose that the challenge, and again, I use this kind of borrow these definitions, soft skills and traditional skills, from that I guess the HR space, if you will, and I think those are the HR's definitions. But I've kind of borrowed these two words, soft skills and traditional skills, from that space, because just want to do a play on words, because the reality of it is that I think that a lot of us as men, we are in a peculiar place in this season of our lives, and or just throughout the world, if you will, and have been in that peculiar place. And I think because we have not, we've been struggling to connect with an identity. We've been struggling to connect with an identity. And because we've been struggling to connect with an identity, we have fallen short on standing up, representing on who we are. We have missed the mark. We have just fallen short on taking our rightful places. And now we're in a situation where the world says to us, or at least trying to give us a definition of who we are. And I think, matter of fact, I spoke with a client this morning, and the client was having some challenges in marriage. And the thing I shared with him, as far as men, that we've got to take a position. And it's not necessarily so much about being just soft skills alone, or that those traditional hard skills. It's not so much as to leaning on both of those things, or leaning onto one side or the other. But it is a matter of being able to navigate between them both. And I think traditional hard skills, or those hard skills, or the traditional man, so to speak, is absolutely important. I think that there's a foundation that is absolutely needed. But then also there's a foundation of, I guess, greater depths that also needs to be brought, unearthed, if you will. I'll use that word. I think it's a good word. Greater depths of us as men that need to be unearthed. And I'm calling that the soft skills. And ideally, the soft skills for us as men, I talked about the character traits and those things, those interpersonal skills that help us to facilitate relationships and essentially just get along with people, make those connections. And for us as men, those soft skills often come with, again, unearthing those soft skills, because I think a lot of us as men, we come from a traditional perspective. Even if we're not traditional, our parents, our fathers have come from a traditional space, and that has really just kind of that traditional mindset, or that those hard skills have really essentially been the foundation, so to speak, of where a lot of us come from. But now we are in a place, gentlemen, we're in a place now we have to unearth the soft skills that is in fact part of all of us. And that means that we've got to make the connection with those who we're connecting with, be it our spouse, be it colleagues, as you are perhaps a CEO or a manager, it doesn't matter. We now have to be able to be prepared to facilitate those connections. Hey, Margaret, thank you for joining. Hey, thank you, Marco, for joining. But so we now have to be prepared to facilitate those connections. And it's important for us as men to facilitate these connections. And having these soft skills means that we are going to need to be vulnerable. And that vulnerable place is not always easy. It's not always easy. So consequently, here's what I'm proposing, and here's what I'm stepping out on a limb here, because I think the challenge for us is, as I'm looking at my notes here, I think the challenge here is that we as men are struggling with an identity, and that can really take me into many different areas, especially in the spiritual place. Not so much just religious, but more of I think the spiritual place gives it a deeper understanding. But having that, yeah, amen. Thank you, Margaret. Having that deeper understanding, and again, recognizing that it is an identity, it is an image that we're having trouble with, and I wasn't struggling with this conversation earlier as much as it was being prepared to just kind of dive in deep. I didn't really want to go there because I think in the past, so many people have had challenges with certain different things that I've shared, not necessarily bad, but just some people just are not necessarily ready to go to those deep places. And I think that in order to unearth, in order to pull out the things that we need to deal with, we've got to be prepared to go to those deep places. And we're going to meet people in life who have gone to those places, if you will, who have not been afraid, and who just, for each of us, life has placed us on different journeys. And so for me, the journey is just kind of that person that's just wants to know about himself. I want to know about myself. I want to learn, and the only way I've had to learn was through my relationship with Christ. That's the way I've had to learn. And obviously, the precursor to all this is that most of us have picked up our father's ways as men. Most of us have garnered the habits of our fathers. And because of that, our fathers, in most cases, had an identity of who they believed they were. And it's not to say that this identity is wrong. But I think that what happens is that when we place our own image of who we think and believe ourselves to be, it causes people to stumble, because guess what? We're not perfect. We're not perfect. So with this identity issue that we have as men, and I am going to step out on another limb and say people have an identity issue. And if I'm going to play the devil's advocate here for a moment, I don't even like using that word, but if I were someone who to deceive you, this greater being to deceive you, I would tell you that the person who's come to save you is truly not the person who's come to save you. I would tell you, I will give you images, I will give you proof in regards to their behaviors that don't necessarily line up with the right image, if you will. So there's this good guy and there's this bad guy. If I were the bad guy, I'm absolutely, and this is just even what takes place within the very world that we live in. If I'm the bad guy, hey, thank you for joining, Jonathan. Appreciate you. Thank you for joining. If I'm the bad guy, and there's the good guy. To facilitate what I'm wanting to do, to put me on a fast track, I'm going to do everything I can do possibly to destroy the person who is good. And because this world has done such a job on destroying the good guy, we're now calling good bad and bad good. So it absolutely represents a identity issue that we're having. So again, if I am the bad guy, I am going to put out all kinds of information that's going to detour you from knowing who you are. And I'm going to have you, I'm going to do a mass campaign and have you confused about who you are, because I want you on my program. That's what I would do. I want you on my program. If I were a bad guy, I want you on my program. And I don't want you to succeed, because ultimately I want you just like me. Because if I'm in a place of not much going on in life and just moseying around, lazy, not getting things done, and I'm looking at you succeed, that's imposition on me. That imposes on who I am. And to impose on who I am makes me feel uncomfortable. So rest assured, before you can make me feel uncomfortable about what I'm doing, I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable about what you're doing. I'm going to say all matters of things to ruin you. All matters of things to deceive you. I'm going to give you the wrong information about who you are. So now you're left to struggle with your identity. You're left to struggle with the very image of who you are. And if you have the wrong image of who you are, your thinking, your perception is mingled up or mangled up, and therefore your thinking is mangled up. You'll think what I want you to think. Therefore, I can indoctrinate you to my own belief system. That is my goal, because I don't want you on the other guy's program. For you to be on the other guy's program is for me, the bad guy, to be out of control. And when I'm out of control, when the bad guy is out of control, he does, or she, just the motivation. I'm talking about, when I say bad guy, I'm not necessarily meaning a bad man, but just the spirit of an individual, the spirit that's behind it, the motivation, if you will. So if I'm a bad guy, I'm going to do all matters of evil to prevent you from getting to that healthy place. Because in the very beginning, there was this healthy place. In the very beginning, there was this healthy place. But I'm the bad guy. And now I'm doing I'm throwing everything at you that's going to prevent you from coming into that healthy place. I'm the bad guy. Now I want you dependent upon me. You're going to use my own logic because I'm going to put certain things together and that they become just logical for us to understand. We use deductive reasoning from a very earthly mindset. So if I'm the bad guy, I'm giving you a bad image. I want you to be of no reputation. I want to ruin your reputation. Because when you feel bad about yourself, you can't show up. You can't even get into your purpose when you feel bad about yourself. When you have the wrong image of who you are, you can't communicate it properly. You can't articulate it properly either, because you're speaking as I would speak. Your image is now the image that I've given you. And this is exactly what happened in the garden. This is exactly what happened in the garden. After the fall, there was a displacement. The image of man was lost. And so if the image is lost, man struggles to find his purpose. Now, we're still talking about soft skills. Soft skills being that men have to become more vulnerable. We're still talking about the hard skills, the traditional skills. Some way and somehow, we have to be prepared to combine those two. As a man, I have also struggled in different areas, much like many of you men who are listening and who will perhaps listen to the replay. I'm not any different. Our struggles and challenges might be different, but nevertheless, we've got to make an effort to come into who we are. Now, I had to answer the question years ago. What is it about this person? What is it about this good guy that they don't want me to know? Why is it such a challenge to know him? Not so much to know him, but why is it such a challenge that when they talk about this good guy, everyone just kind of shuns that conversation. No one wants to talk about it. And no one wants to hear about him. So it led me to come to a place where naturally I wanted to know about this good guy. Naturally, I wanted to know about this good guy. And perhaps it was the fruit in the bowl, and I was told that there's like several different types of fruit in the bowl, and I was told that I could have all of these, I can have use of I can eat all the fruit that's in the bowl, but I couldn't have the apples. And naturally, I wanted the apples. And so for me, I wanted to know about this good guy. I wanted to know about him. I wanted to see why everyone was had something to say about him, or just didn't talk about him. What did he do so wrong? So the last 2 years I've been reading out of the book of Genesis. The last 2 years, particular scriptures, Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 31, 5 scriptures. They have absolutely, completely changed my life. They have given me an identity that I didn't possess at one time. They have given me an image that I was completely unaware of one time. I learned how to be vulnerable. I also learned how to stand my ground on certain things. I figured that also that being a married man, that I needed to have consistency, because ultimately for us men who are married or a significant other, I've learned that our wives, our significant other, desire consistency. They desire consistency. And the more I was consistent in who I am, the more you're consistent in who you are, we build up trust. Trust is built up. Trust is created. Confidence is created. And so from those scriptures that I've been reading, that I just shared with you, Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 to 31, from those scriptures, I've acquired the confidence that I need to be the husband that I need to be the father first and foremost, to come into the proper identity, having the right image first and foremost. Because what I discovered is that I needed someone in my life who was consistent. I needed someone in my life who was not changing through every emotional situation. I wasn't that person. I didn't know how to be that person to myself. And most of us as men, we don't know how to be that person to ourselves. We have anchored ourselves in most cases to our fathers. And fathers are obviously human and they make mistakes too. And we lose faith in our fathers, our biological fathers, our physical fathers here on this earth. We lose faith in them. We lose faith in our mothers sometimes. And for me, I had lost faith. And so I was looking for something more consistent. It didn't mean that I didn't love my mother and my father. It didn't mean any of that. But it meant that on a deeper level, there was something more. I was hungry for something. I felt a pull. And I didn't even intend to make this more of a about spirituality. It was not my goal today. I just flow with me here. And if you're listening to replay, great. If not, great too. Hopefully you will. But nevertheless, just flow with me here. So it was not my intentions to go here. And as I found myself as a young person, just really hungry, thirsty, trying to make a connection with other men. And it just didn't go the way I desired it. But at some point I discovered that I would need to become the man that I was looking for. I would need to become the man that I desired. And later on, even with that, that was limited. I needed to become the man that God wanted me to be. Because in that, it wasn't a left message. It wasn't a message to the right. But it was a message that was one for all. That I could speak to you as a man or a woman regarding a particular subject or conversation and connect with you. But if I were to come out of my own desire, oftentimes our experiences are so different and just varying in different ways and different levels, the connection is often lost. So I needed to connect in love. I needed to connect in love. I needed to bypass all the garbage that I had heard about this good guy. And see for myself who this good guy was. So at some point, I took it upon myself to develop a relationship with this good guy. And here I am. Here I am. I've had to learn also that in missing the mark, I was never going to find my purpose. I was never going to find my purpose. And many of you aren't going to find your purpose when you are missing the mark consistently over and over. There's an image that you were made in, and there's a likeness, there's a character of a spirit that we know as God. There's a motivation behind it that we know as God. That I've learned to know that this motivation is God. And to come out of myself to share me is often the disconnect a lot of times. I didn't find my purpose in the disconnect. I found my purpose in the connection and making the alignment, the proper alignment. Soft skills or traditional hard skills. Masculinity has to absolutely be redefined. And I say that with love in my heart, because I think that we've been given an identity as men, as people. We've been given an identity. This is who you should be. And a lot of times as men, when we are not doing what we believe we should be doing, there is a loss of identity. Well, if I'm not working, there's a, who am I? There's a loss of identity. If I'm not driving this particular vehicle, there's a loss of identity. And life has a way of just showing up unannounced. Life has a way of showing up completely unannounced. Excuse me. And doing so, it often hits us with all kinds of just different things, man. We experience all kinds of different things because life just shows up. And we have to be prepared for it. And oftentimes we're not prepared for it because we're coming in from the angle or the perspective that the world has given you. I'm going to read something here really quick here. It says, most of what, I wrote this earlier, most of what has been given to us has come by way or means of suggestive communication, directly or indirectly. Consequently, we acquired a reliance on this mindset, speculative, circumstantial, and sensible. Well, you might say, well, Curtis, what does that mean? That means that we've come into an identity that someone has given us. And that identity oftentimes in the way of, going back to this biblical space, in a way of Eve eating of the fruit in Genesis chapter 3, I believe. Yes, Genesis chapter 3. She was given an identity through Satan, a suggestive communication. And I'm going to step on a very long limb and say that is the case with many of us. That is the case with many of us. We have not been able to discern the voice of the good shepherd. And because we have not been able to discern the voice of the good shepherd, we have listened or taken heed to others' suggestive communication. And even in this other bad guy, this suggestive communication, there's a wisdom in that. There's a wisdom in that suggestive communication, much like there's a wisdom that comes from God. And so my point is that most of us have been hanging out right there. That wisdom that comes from the world, that keeps us covered, that keeps us in a place where we're wearing that mask, that prevents us from being vulnerable, that prevents us from showing up. Because, as I stated earlier, if you have the wrong identity, you have the wrong image. And if you have the wrong image, 99.9% of the time, you're going to have a behavior that exemplifies that image. And if you have that behavior that exemplifies that image, you're going to have the communication, the mannerisms, the ways. You're going to begin to speak like the bad guy. You're going to sound like the bad guy. And the communication from the bad guy is not so, it's not always so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not always so overt, if you will, in a sense where he is not always going to say what he wants to do or speak his desires openly. So the suggestive communication comes as a suggestion, covertly, so to speak. And again, if you have the wrong identity, you've got the wrong image, you've got the wrong behaviors that come, because you cannot plant apple seeds and get oranges unless you use some weird science stuff or whatever the case might be, some hybrid stuff or whatever. The behavior will line up with the thinking, the mindset. And when the behavior aligns with the mindset, also there is the communication. And because the communication is off, there is a man or woman not being able to connect with their purpose. Because the communication is off, starting with the identity, there is a man or a woman that's walking around not able to connect with, not able to connect with the very purpose that is in them. The very reason why you're here in this earth, the very reason why your life came to be, because of a poor image. Because we don't know the identity, because with the proper identity comes the right characteristics. With the proper identity comes an alignment. And when we're out of alignment, in most cases we don't have the home court advantage. Now, I did not intend for this message to go this way. I promise you I didn't. This was not my goal. I put this message together in a way that I believed it, I wanted it to go. And here I am. So what happens when things don't go as we planned them to go? We have the propensity to get angry. We have the propensity to act like children. Most of life will be us coming back to, or at least trying to get back. Because at some point, there becomes a yearning in your soul. At some point, there becomes a yearning in your soul to get back to that place. And perhaps you don't know where that place is. But at some point, there's a yearning, there's a hunger, there's a, you know what, this other stuff that I've been chasing after, it doesn't even matter anymore. Because at the end of the day, unless it is right with your soul, unless it is right with your heart, I cannot be mean to my wife and come here on this broadcast and tell you something completely different. Many people will, but that's not my cup of tea. It's having to reconcile. There must be a reconciliation. There needs to be a reconciliation. I said earlier, I've been talking about the identity, men struggling with their identity. And as we continue to struggle with our identity, we don't know the purpose of that thing. And because that thing being us, we don't know the purpose of our lives, I should say. And because we don't know the purpose of our lives, again, we are struggling with the identity, because it's been said, this person, the good guy who's been bringing all this good news, it's been said that he's really not for you. He's really not for you. He doesn't care anything about you. And the truth of the matter is that the very person who is bringing all this nonsense, that's the person. My mom would say to me as a young person, she would say, Curtis, remember, a dog that brings a bone carries a bone. My mother was full of these different tidbits of wisdom, absolutely. And she would say that to me. And it would be years later. I used to say to my mom, I said, Mom, you speak like you're speaking in parables. And so years later, when she shared that with me, that's when it opened up. Because rest assured, if someone is bringing us bad news about the other person, they're carrying the bad news. They're carrying the things that we're sharing back to the other person. So they've said a heap of stuff about this good guy. Said all kinds of horrible things about this good guy. To the point where we don't even care about it anymore. The good guy carries your identity. The good guy carries everything that you will ever need. Because as a father, as a good father, I've spoke blessings upon my child, much like the blessings have been spoken upon you. Maybe not by your physical father, but your heavenly Father. And now you and I are accountable for carrying those things out. We're being held to a higher standard, gentlemen. The biggest thing that I have come into as being a father, a husband, is to learn that there is more to this. Because not having a father, I didn't have the template. And even once I kind of looked around and seen all the other fathers doing their thing and gathering information, if you will, I still desired something greater. I was still hungry for something greater. And unless we, as men, are prepared to ask the right questions, look into the very challenges that we are having, begin to question those challenges, those burdens, where are they coming from? Question those feelings. You're coming from a space as men, we need to come from a space of, again, as I mentioned earlier, masculinity, or the title of this conversation, Masculinity Redefined. We need to marry the two. That traditional man is important. There are some things that I've learned from that traditional man, absolutely, that are definitely important. But there are some ways and conversations that I need to have from the soft skill perspective, knowing that I need to become more vulnerable. Because if not, I'm potentially walking around with my head stuck in the sand, being completely oblivious to what is going on around me, making connections with self, coming into a greater understanding of who I am. And that's what I'm proposing for us as men to do. Be prepared to ask yourself the tough questions. As I stated earlier, I am a men's life coach. You can reach out to me for a complimentary consultation at bit.ly/free 30-minute coaching. And this complimentary consultation, we will talk about some things that are pressing for you, and we can absolutely find out if we are a good fit for each other. The goal of these conversations, I do them each Thursday. The goal of these conversations is to set the captives free. I'm going to be very honest with you. The goal of this conversation that I'm having with you each Thursday is to set the captives free, for men to come into a greater understanding of who they are. Because right now, it's just surface level. It's just surface level. And as long as it's surface level, we've got the wrong identity. As long as the conversation remains surface level, we have the wrong identity. We're still distracted. Excuse me. Just on a personal note, my wife works full time. I'm here at home taking care of my baby girl. And as a man, I absolutely struggle with that. Absolutely struggle with that. And as most of you might struggle with that as well. And I want to say, I can't give you a time frame on how long I struggle with that. I don't think it was too long, but because it was, I was in and out of this place, if you will. But it was those scriptures that I shared with you earlier, Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 31, that helped me make the connection that I wasn't my job. I wasn't my lack of financial resources. I wasn't my car. And that in the midst of all of what's going on, my wife, my family, needed someone who was consistent. Consistent not only as a man, as we know, as we have determined it, as a man, not from that perspective, but consistent in my relationship with God. Because everything would flow down from that. There's one resource, and from that resource, all the other sources flow from that, or the source, all the other resources flow from that particular source. And this is what I want for us to, I guess, grow as men, to grow into a deeper understanding. Somehow, I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to say it this way. Somehow you've been duped. You've been duped. We've placed all of our resources into stuff, into cars, and even to women, even to alcohol, even to drugs, and all these external things. And at the end of the day, they were just a temporary satisfaction. They were a temporary satisfaction. And somehow, I was there too now. I'm not jabbing at anyone. I was there too. But I was still yearning after it. I was still yearning for more. And the more I partied and drank and did other things, the women and all of those different things, yes, me, Curtis, yes, me, I was there too. The more I did those things, the more I desired to do them more and more. And as we're kind of wrapping it up here, I want to say that things in life happen for a reason. They truly do. And though a lot of different things are absolutely orchestrated by people, by the bad guy. I believe that. A lot of the things that we have dealt with in life have been orchestrated by the bad guy. I believe that in all my heart. But even though they've been orchestrated by the bad guy, oftentimes they can bring our life to a halt. They can bring our life to a place where we can feel like, man, what the heck just happened? And I want to suggest to you, us as men, women too, that these different things that take place in life, they're happening for a reason. They're happening for a reason. There's usually always a messenger. These different things that are taking place in life act as a messenger. A man becomes angry about something. Ideally, his expression or his output is anger. But when you peel back the layers, you find out exactly what he is angry about. We talked, or at least I talked about this on last week's discussion, anger. Now I'm talking about revealing who you are. You're not your cars. You're not your many houses. You're not all the property that you own. You're not all the money in the world. But when life shows up that makes us stop and we're wondering what the heck just happened, know and understand that these things happen for a reason. Life is stopping and going, paying attention to the stop signs that show up in life. And sometimes the stop signs that show up in life is an opportunity for us to make corrections. Except many of us have been running the stop signs. And sometimes the message is tap on the shoulder. At first. And other times, the message is something much, much more difficult for us to deal with. But a lot of times we say, oh, it's something else is happening. They don't like me or whatever the case. I mean, a host of different things. But when we understand that life is happening for a reason, to slow us down, to help us get back into the driver's seat, to help us to find our way again, we can put things in a proper perspective. Life is about first knowing your identity, because as I shared with you earlier, when you are away from your identity, when you and I don't know our identity, have an identity, we're subject to believe. We're subject to believe these suggestive thoughts, be it through movies, be it through social media, all matters of media, through perhaps conversations that resonate with us, things that we hear, things that we see, the suggestive thoughts that take place in here, such as they did for Eve in the garden, suggesting that God was lying, just suggesting that the good guy was not really a good guy. He didn't really want the good things for her. He didn't really want the best things for her. But as he continued talking, suggesting these thoughts, she began to hop on board with what he had spoken to her. And the Bible says that, and she ate of the fruit. And then several scriptures later, she then shared that fruit with her husband. He ate of the fruit. And they now were they both had fallen. They are now both deceived because they believed the message that the bad guy had told him about the good guy. So as we're wrapping it up here, I want you to, as men, to be encouraged to find out who this good guy is, the one that nobody really wants to talk about, the one that was shunned. By the way, the whole world shunned him. I want to encourage you to find out who this good guy is. Because when you discover who this good guy is, you're going to discover that he's the foundation for all that you would desire, all that you would hope for. He is a combination of the soft skills and the hard skills coming together, the two marrying, the two becoming one. I want for us men to know that we're absolutely not alone. I want for us men to know that, as I've stated many times, is that your identity is something that you need desperately. The right identity. Not even who your father may have been. Because, let's face it, there is still a desire. There's still a hunger. Mom couldn't give me enough. Dad couldn't give me enough. I didn't get enough out of this particular relationship. There was still a hunger. And until that hunger is satisfied, we're unsettled in our spirit. We're unsettled with this identity. And as long as we're unsettled with this identity, obviously still searching for it, searching to make sense of it, searching to make the connection, because we have all of this suggestive language that has been going on. All of these thoughts from the very beginning that have taken place. And somehow the thoughts that are taking place, they have a tendency to impede or make it difficult for us to see who we really are. And as I said earlier, if I were the bad guy, if I had the power, that's exactly what I would do. I would put out so much information about that good guy. So much negative information about that good guy that I would then make the good look like it was, make the bad make it look like it was good. My job would be to completely destroy the good guy. Because as long as a good guy is sitting on the throne and he can't make himself useful because we don't know him. We have a warped vision or view or perspective of him. Because we see the good guy as a bad guy. And as long as we have that warped view or perspective of the good guy, we can never get what the good guy has for us. We'll never walk in that place of what the good guy has for us. Because the bad guy has these promises that he never fulfills. He's dangling a carrot that we can never achieve. That place that we're trying to get to, we can never achieve. Because we've placed so much trust in the bad guy that we don't even know if the good guy is good, because the bad guy has spoken so much ill, has so much disdain towards the good guy, that the bad guy has turned our heart against the good guy. So as men, as stated earlier, I want to encourage you that your best days are in front of you, and that if you are by any means having trouble or just dealing with something that you want to discuss, you can absolutely get in contact with me with the information on the screen for a complimentary consultation. That is bit.ly/free 30-minute coaching. Again, that is a complimentary session. We can talk about what's on your heart. We can talk about what's pressing for you. Because for most of us who have the wrong identity, it ends up being a heart condition. It ends up being a hardening of the heart that opposes the good guy, that opposes any information that's going to resuscitate us, to bring us out of that dark place, that lowly place, to put our focus back in the proper perspective. Because as a man, if humanity does not matter anymore, I'm not saying that's the case, but as a man, if humanity does not matter anymore, being your fellow neighbor, your colleague, your subordinate. If humanity does not matter anymore, you've got the wrong identity. And that's why you can reach out to me as a executive coach, men's life coach. We can have a 30-minute complimentary consultation and discuss those things. Figure out if you and I can work together or not. It's completely up to you. So I want to wrap it up here, guys. I want to say thank you for listening in. Thank you for being part of this wonderful conversation. And we didn't have any other comments other than Margaret. Margaret, thank you for being part of the conversation. Thank you, Jonathan, as well, for being part of the conversation, and all of those who have listened in. I really appreciate you. Again, I did not intend for this conversation to go this way, but it did, and I just had to flow with it. So again, thank you for being part of this conversation. We will talk with you soon. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.